Athena now put it in Penelope's mind to make the suitors try their skill with the bow and with the iron axes, and contest among themselves, as a means of bringing about their destruction. She went upstairs and got the storeroom key, which was made of bronze and had a handle of ivory. She then went with her maidens into the storeroom at the end of the house, where her husband's treasures of gold, bronze, and wrought iron were kept, and where was also his bow, and the quiver full of deadly arrows that had been given him by a friend whom he had met in Lacedaemon, Iphitus, the son of Eurytus. Iphitus had gone there also, to try and get back 12 brood mares that he had lost, and the mule foals that were running with them. These mares were the death of him in the end, for when he went to the house of Zeus's son, mighty Heracles, who performed such prodigies of valour, Heracles to his shame killed him, though he was his guest. For he feared not the sky's vengeance, nor yet respected his own table which he had set before Iphitus, but killed him in spite of everything, and kept the mares himself. Penelope soon reached the oak threshold of the storeroom. The carpenter had planed this duly, and had drawn a line on it so as to get it quite straight. He had then set the doorposts into it, and hung the doors. She loosed the strap from the handle of the door, put in the key, and drove it straight home to shoot back the bolts that held the doors. Along with her came her maidens, bearing a chest that contained much iron and bronze, which her husband had won as prizes. When she reached the suitors, she stood by one of the bearing posts supporting the roof of the cloister, holding a veil before her face, and with a maid on either side of her. Then she said, "Listen to me, you suitors, who persist in abusing the hospitality of this house because its owner has been long absent, and without other pretext than that you want to marry me." Hard by, the stockman wept also when he saw his master's bow. But Antinous scolded them. "You country louts," said he, "silly simpletons. Why should you add to the sorrows of your mistress by crying in this way? She has enough to grieve her in the loss of her husband. Sit still, so, and eat your dinners in silence, or go outside if you want to cry, and leave the bow behind you. We suitors shall have to contend for it with might and main, for we shall find it no light matter to string such a bow as this is. There is not a man of us all who is such another as Odysseus." Then Telemachus spoke. "Great sky!" he exclaimed. "Zeus must have robbed me of my senses. Here is my dear and excellent mother saying she will quit this house and marry again, yet I am laughing and enjoying myself as though there were nothing happening. But, suitors, as the contest has been agreed upon, let it go forward. It is for a woman whose peer is not to be found in Pylos, Argos, or Mycene, nor yet in Ithaca, nor on the mainland. You know this as well as I do. What need have I to speak in praise of my mother? Come on, then. Make no excuses for delay, but let us see whether you can string the bow or no." First he set the axes in a row, in a long groove which he had dug for them, and had made straight by line. Then he stamped the earth tight round them, and everyone was surprised when they saw him set them up so orderly, though he had never seen anything of the kind before. This done, he went on to the pavement to make trial of the bow. Thrice did he tug at it, trying with all his might to draw the string, and thrice he had to leave off, though he had hoped to string the bow and shoot through the iron. Then he sat down on the seat from which he had risen, and Antinous said, "Come on, each of you in his turn, going towards the right from the place at which the cupbearer begins when he is handing round the wine." The rest agreed, and Laodes, son of Enops, was the first to rise. He was sacrificial priest to the suitors, and sat in the corner near the mixing bowl. He was the only man who hated their evil deeds, and was indignant with the others. Some one of us is even now hoping and praying that he may marry Penelope. But when he has seen this bow and tried it, let him woo and make bridal offerings to some other woman, and let Penelope marry whoever makes her the best offer, and whose lot it is to win her. On this he put the bow down, letting it lean against the door, with the arrow standing against the tip of the bow. Then he took his seat again on the seat from which he had risen. And Antinous rebuked him, saying, "Leodes, what do you mean? Your words are monstrous and intolerable. It makes me angry to listen to you. Let us warm the bow and grease it. We will then make trial of it again, and bring the contest to an end." Melanthius lit the fire, and set a seat covered with sheepskins beside it. He also brought a great ball of lard from what they had in the house, and the suitors warmed the bow and again made trial of it, but they were none of them nearly strong enough to string it. Even so, there still remained Antinous and Eurymachus, who were the ringleaders among the suitors, and much the foremost among them all. Then the swineherd and the stockman left the cloisters together, and Odysseus followed them. "Say which you are disposed to do. Decide with the suitors, or with Odysseus." "Father Zeus," answered the stockman, "would indeed that you might so ordain it. If some god were but to bring Odysseus back, you should see with what might and main I would fight for him." In like words Eumaeus prayed to all the gods that Odysseus might return. When, so, he saw for certain what mind they were of, Odysseus said, "It is I, Odysseus, who am here. I have suffered much, but at last, in the 20th year, I am come back to my own country. I will now give you convincing proofs that you may know me and be assured. See, here is the scar from the boar's tooth that ripped me when I was out hunting on Mount Parnassus with the sons of Autolycus." As he spoke, he drew his rags aside from the great scar, and when they had examined it thoroughly, they both of them wept about Odysseus, threw their arms round him, and kissed his head and shoulders, while Odysseus kissed their hands and faces in return. The sun would have gone down upon their mourning if Odysseus had not checked them and said, "Cease your weeping, lest someone should come outside and see us, and tell those who are within. If they hear any groaning or uproar, as of men fighting about the house, they must not come out. They must keep quiet and stay where they are at their work. And I charge you, Philoetius, to make fast the doors of the outer court, and to bind them securely at once." When he had thus spoken, he went back to the house and took the seat that he had left. Soon his two servants followed him inside. At this moment the bow was in the hands of Eurymachus, who was warming it by the fire. But even so he could not string it, and he was greatly grieved. He heaved a deep sigh and said, "I grieve for myself and for us all. Today is the feast of Apollo throughout all the land. Who can string a bow on such a day as this? Put it on one side. As for the axes, they can stay where they are, for no one is likely to come to the house and take them away. Let the cupbearer go round with his cups, that we may make our drink offerings and drop this matter of the bow. We will tell Melanthius to bring us in some goats tomorrow, the best he has. I appeal more especially to Eurymachus, and to Antinous, who has just spoken with so much reason. Cease shooting for the present, and leave the matter to the gods. But in the morning let the sky give victory to whom it will. For the moment, however, give me the bow, that I may prove the power of my hands among you all, and see whether I still have as much strength as I used to have, or whether travel and neglect have made an end of it." This made them all very angry, for they feared he might string the bow. Antinous so rebuked him fiercely, saying, "Wretched creature, you have not so much as a grain of sense in your whole body." It was wine that inflamed the centaur Eurytion when he was staying with Perithous among the Lapithae. When the wine had got into his head, he went mad and did ill deeds about the house of Perithous. This angered the heroes who were there assembled, so they rushed at him and cut off his ears and nostrils. Then they dragged him through the doorway out of the house. So he went away crazed and bore the burden of his crime, bereft of understanding. Henceforth, so, there was war between mankind and the centaurs, but he brought it upon himself through his own drunkenness. If the stranger should prove strong enough to string the mighty bow of Odysseus, can you suppose that he would take me home with him and make me his wife? Even the man himself can have no such idea in his mind. None of you need let that disturb his feasting. It would be out of all reason." "Queen Penelope," answered Eurymachus, "we do not suppose that this man will take you away with him. It is impossible. But we are afraid lest some of the baser sort, men or women among the Greeks, should go gossiping about and say, 'These suitors are a feeble folk. This stranger is strong and well built. He says, moreover, that he is of noble birth. Give him the bow, and let us see whether he can string it or no.' I say, and it shall surely be, that if Apollo vouchsafes him the glory of stringing it, I will give him a cloak and shirt of good wear, with a javelin to keep off dogs and robbers, and a sharp sword. I will also give him sandals, and will see him sent safely wherever he wants to go." Then Telemachus said, "Mother, I am the only man either in Ithaca or in the islands that are over against Elis, who has the right to let anyone have the bow, or to refuse it. This bow is a man's matter, and mine above all others, for it is I who am master here." She went wandering back into the house and laid her son's saying in her heart. Then, going upstairs with her serving women into her room, she mourned her dear husband till Athena sent sweet sleep over her eyelids. The swineherd now took up the bow and was for taking it to Odysseus, but the suitors clamoured at him from all parts of the cloisters, and one of them said, "You idiot, where are you taking the bow to? Are you out of your wits?" "I wish I was as much stronger than all the other suitors in the house as I am than you. I would soon send some of them off sick and sorry, for they mean mischief." Thus did he speak, and they all of them laughed heartily, which put them in a better humour with Telemachus. So Eumaeus brought the bow on and placed it in the hands of Odysseus. When he had done this, he called Euryclea apart and said to her, "Euryclea, Telemachus says you are to close the doors of the women's apartments." Then would one turn towards his neighbour, saying, "This is some tricky old bow fancier. Either he has got one like it at home, or he wants to make one. In such workmanlike style does the old vagabond handle it." Another said, "I hope he may be no more successful in other things than he is likely to be in stringing this bow." But Odysseus, when he had taken it up and examined it all over, strung it as easily as a skilled bard strings a new peg of his lyre and makes the twisted gut fast at both ends. Then he took it in his right hand to prove the string, and it sang sweetly under his touch like the twittering of a swallow. He took an arrow that was lying upon the table, for those which the Greeks were so shortly about to taste were all inside the quiver. He laid it on the centerpiece of the bow, and drew the notch of the arrow and the string toward him, still seated on his seat. When he had taken aim, he let fly, and his arrow pierced every one of the handle holes of the axes from the first onwards, till it had gone right through them and into the outer courtyard. Then he said to Telemachus, "Your guest has not disgraced you, Telemachus. I did not miss what I aimed at, and I was not long in stringing my bow." Then Odysseus tore off his rags, and sprang on to the broad pavement with his bow and his quiver full of arrows. He shed the arrows onto the ground at his feet and said, "The mighty contest is at an end. I will now see whether Apollo will vouchsafe it to me to hit another mark which no man has yet hit." On this, he aimed a deadly arrow at Antinous, who was about to take up a two-handled gold cup to drink his wine, and already had it in his hands. He had no thought of death. Who amongst all the revelers would think that one man, however brave, would stand alone among so many and kill him? The suitors were in an uproar when they saw that a man had been hit. They sprang in dismay, one and all of them, from their seats, and looked everywhere towards the walls. But there was neither shield nor spear, and they rebuked Odysseus very angrily. "Stranger," said they, "you shall pay for shooting people in this way. You shall see no other contest. You are a doomed man. He whom you have slain was the foremost youth in Ithaca, and the vultures shall devour you for having killed him." Thus they spoke, for they thought that he had killed Antinous by mistake, and did not perceive that death was hanging over the head of every one of them. "You have feared neither God nor man, and now you shall die." They turned pale with fear as he spoke, and every man looked round about to see where he might fly for safety. But Eurymachus alone spoke. "If you are Odysseus," said he, "then what you have said is just. We have done much wrong on your lands and in your house. But Antinous, who was the head and front of the offending, lies low already. It was all his doing. It was not that he wanted to marry Penelope. He did not so much care about that. What he wanted was something quite different, and Zeus has not vouchsafed it to him. Until we have done this, no one can complain of your being enraged against us." Odysseus again glared at him and said, "Though you should give me all that you have in the world, both now and all that you ever shall have, I will not stay my hand till I have paid all of you in full. You must fight or fly for your lives. And fly, not a man of you shall." Their hearts sank as they heard him, but Eurymachus again spoke, saying, "My friends, this man will give us no quarter. He will stand where he is and shoot us down till he has killed every man among us. Let us then show fight." He dropped his sword and fell doubled up over his table. The cup and all the meats went over onto the ground as he smote the earth with his forehead in the agonies of death, and he kicked the stool with his feet until his eyes were closed in darkness. Then Amphinomus drew his sword and made straight at Odysseus to try and get him away from the door. But Telemachus was too quick for him and struck him from behind. The spear caught him between the shoulders and went right through his chest, so that he fell heavily to the ground and struck the earth with his forehead. Then he said, "Father, let me bring you a shield, 2 spears, and a brass helmet for your temples. I will arm myself as well, and will bring other armor for the swineherd and the stockman, for we had better be armed." "Run and fetch them," answered Odysseus, "while my arrows hold out, or when I am alone they may get me away from the door." Telemachus did as his father said, and went off to the storeroom where the armor was kept. He chose 4 shields, 8 spears, and 4 brass helmets with horsehair plumes. Now there was a trap door on the wall, while at one end of the pavement there was an exit leading to a narrow passage, and this exit was closed by a well-made door. Odysseus told Philoctetes to stand by this door and guard it, for only one person could attack it at a time. But Agelaus shouted out, "Cannot someone go up to the trap door and tell the people what is going on? Help would come at once, and we should soon make an end of this man and his shooting." "This may not be, Agelaus," answered Melanthius. "The mouth of the narrow passage is dangerously near the entrance to the outer court. But I know what I will do. I will bring you arms from the storeroom, for I am sure it is there that Odysseus and his son have put them." On this the goatherd Melanthius went by back passages to the storeroom of Odysseus's house. There he chose 12 shields, with as many helmets and spears, and brought them back as fast as he could to give them to the suitors. Odysseus's heart began to fail him when he saw the suitors putting on their armour and brandishing their spears. Meanwhile Melanthius was again going to the storeroom to fetch more armour. But the swineherd saw him, and said to Odysseus, who was beside him, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, it is that scoundrel Melanthius, just as we suspected, who is going to the storeroom. Say, shall I kill him, if I can get the better of him? Or shall I bring him here that you may take your own revenge for all the many wrongs that he has done in your house?" Odysseus answered, "Telemachus and I will hold these suitors in check, no matter what they do. Go back, both of you, and bind Melanthius's hands and feet behind him." After a while, Melanthius came out with a helmet in one hand and an old, dry-rotted shield in the other, which had been borne by Laertes when he was young, but which had been long since thrown aside, and the straps had become unsewn. On this the two seized him, dragged him back by the hair, and threw him struggling to the ground. They bent his hands and feet well behind his back, and bound them tight with a painful bond as Odysseus had told them. "You will know very well when morning comes from the streams of Oceanus, and it is time for you to be driving in your goats for the suitors to feast on." There then, they left him in very cruel bondage, and having put on their armour they closed the door behind them, and went back to take their places by the side of Odysseus. And then the 4 men stood in the cloister, fierce and full of fury. Even so, those who were in the body of the court were still both brave and many. Then Zeus's daughter Athena came up to them, having assumed the voice and form of Mentor. "You shall pay for it with your head. And when we have killed you, we will take all you have, indoors or out, and bring it into Hotchpot with Odysseus's property. We will not let your sons live in your house, nor your daughters, nor shall your widow continue to live in the city of Ithaca." This made Athena still more furious, so she scolded Odysseus very angrily. "Odysseus," said she, "your strength and prowess are no longer what they were when you fought for 9 long years among the Trojans about the noble lady Helen. You killed many a man in those days, and it was through your stratagem that Priam's city was taken. Meanwhile Agelaus, son of Damasta, Eurynomus, Amphimedon, Demoptolemus, Pisander, and Polybus, son of Polyctor, bore the brunt of the fight upon the suitors' side. Of all those who were still fighting for their lives, they were by far the most valiant, for the others had already fallen under the arrows of Odysseus. Agelaus shouted to them and said, "My friends, He will soon have to leave off, for Mentor has gone away after having done nothing for him but brag. They are standing at the doors unsupported. Do not aim at him all at once, but 6 of you throw your spears first, and see if you cannot cover yourselves with glory by killing him." 1 hit the doorpost. Another went against the door. The pointed shaft of another struck the wall. And as soon as they had avoided all the spears of the suitors, Odysseus said to his own men, "My friends, I should say we too had better let drive into the middle of them, or they will crown all the harm they have done us by killing us outright." They so aimed straight in front of them and threw their spears. Odysseus killed Demoptolemus, Telemachus, Euryades, Eumaeus, Elatus, while the stockman killed Pisander. These all bit the dust, and as the others drew back into a corner, Odysseus and his men rushed forward and regained their spears by drawing them from the bodies of the dead. Then Odysseus and his men let drive into the crowd of suitors. Odysseus hit Eurydamas, Telemachus Amphimedon, and Eumaeus Polybus. After this, the stockman hit Ctesippus in the breast, and taunted him, saying, "Foul-mouthed son of Polytherses, do not be so foolish as to talk wickedly another time, but let the sky direct your speech, for the gods are far stronger than men." As eagle-beaked, crook-taloned vultures from the mountains swoop down on the smaller birds that cower in flocks upon the ground, and kill them, for they cannot either fight or fly, and lookers-on enjoy the sport. Even so did Odysseus and his men fall upon the suitors and smite them on every side. They made a horrible groaning as their brains were being battered in, and the ground seethed with their blood. Leiodes then caught the knees of Odysseus and said, "Odysseus, I beseech you, have mercy upon me and spare me. I never wronged any of the women in your house, either in word or deed, and I tried to stop the others. So you shall die." With these words, he picked up the sword that Agelaus had dropped when he was being killed, and which was lying upon the ground. Then he struck Leiodes on the back of his neck, so that his head fell rolling in the dust while he was yet speaking. The minstrel Phemius, son of Terpes, he who had been forced by the suitors to sing to them, now tried to save his life. He was standing near towards the trap-door and held his lyre in his hand. So he laid his lyre on the ground, between the mixing bowl and the silver-studded seat. Then going up to Odysseus, he caught hold of his knees and said, "Odysseus, I beseech you, have mercy on me and spare me. You will be sorry for it afterwards if you kill a bard who can sing both for gods and men as I can. I make all my lays myself, and the sky visits me with every kind of inspiration. I would sing to you as though you were a god. Do not so be in such a hurry to cut my head off." "Hold," he cried. "The man is guiltless. Do him no hurt. And we will spare Medon too, who was always good to me when I was a boy, unless Philocius or Eumaeus has already killed him, or he has fallen in your way when you were raging about the court." Medon caught these words of Telemachus, for he was crouching under a seat beneath which he had hidden by covering himself up with a freshly flayed heifer's hide. So he threw off the hide, went up to Telemachus, and laid hold of his knees. Then Odysseus searched the whole court carefully over, to see if anyone had managed to hide himself and was still living. But he found them all lying in the dust and weltering in their blood. They were like fishes which fishermen have netted out of the sea, and thrown upon the beach to lie gasping for water till the heat of the sun makes an end of them. Even so were the suitors lying all huddled up, one against the other. Then Odysseus said to Telemachus, "Call nurse Euryclea. I have something to say to her." Telemachus went and knocked at the door of the women's room. She found Odysseus among the corpses, bespattered with blood and filth, like a lion that has just been devouring an ox. And his breast and both his cheeks are all bloody, so that he is a fearful sight. Even so was Odysseus besmirched from head to foot with gore. When she saw all the corpses and such a quantity of blood, she was beginning to cry out for joy, for she saw that a great deed had been done. But Odysseus checked her. "Old woman," said he, "rejoice in silence. Restrain yourself, and do not make any noise about it. It is an unholy thing to vaunt over dead men. There are 50 women in the house whom we teach to do things, such as carding wool and all kinds of household work. Of these, 12 in all have misbehaved, and have been wanting in respect to me, and also to Penelope. They showed no disrespect to Telemachus, for he has only lately grown, and his mother never permitted him to give orders to the female servants. But let me go upstairs and tell your wife all that has happened, for some god has been sending her to sleep." "Do not wake her yet," answered Odysseus, "but tell the women who have misconducted themselves to come to me." Euryclea left the cloister to tell the women, and make them come to Odysseus. "When you have thoroughly cleansed the whole cloisters, take the women into the space between the domed room and the wall of the outer court, and run them through with your swords till they are quite dead, and have forgotten all about love and the way in which they used to lie in secret with the suitors." On this the women came down in a body, weeping and wailing bitterly. First they carried the dead bodies out, and propped them up against one another in the gatehouse. Odysseus ordered them about, and made them do their work quickly, so they had to carry the bodies out. Then, when they had made the whole place quite clean and orderly, they took the women out, and hemmed them in the narrow space between the wall of the domed room and that of the yard, so that they could not get away. And Telemachus said to the other two, "I shall not let these women die a clean death, for they were arrogant to me and my mother, and used to sleep with the suitors." So saying, he made a ship's cable fast to one of the bearing posts that supported the roof of the domed room, and secured it all round the building, at a good height, lest any of the women's feet should touch the ground. When they had done this, they washed their hands and feet, and went back into the house, for all was now over. And Odysseus said to the dear old nurse Euryclea, "Bring me sulphur, which cleanses all pollution, and fetch fire also that I may burn it, and purify the cloisters. Go, moreover, and tell Penelope to come here with her attendants, and also all the serving women that are in the house." "All that you have said is true," answered Euryclea, "but let me bring you some clean clothes, a shirt and cloak. Do not keep these rags on your back any longer. It is not right." "First, light me a fire," replied Odysseus. Euryclea now went upstairs laughing, to tell her mistress that her dear husband had come home. Her aged knees became young again, and her feet were nimble for joy as she went up to her mistress and bent over her head to speak to her. "Wake up, Penelope, my dear child," she exclaimed, "and see with your own eyes something that you have been wanting this long time past." Odysseus has at last indeed come home again, and has killed the suitors who were giving so much trouble in his house, eating up his estate and ill-treating his son." "My good nurse," answered Penelope, "you must be mad. Go back again into the women's room. If it had been anyone else who had woke me up to bring me such absurd news, I should have sent her away with a severe scolding. As it is, your age shall protect you." "My dear child," answered Euryclea, "I am not mocking you. It is quite true, as I tell you, that Odysseus is come home again. He was the stranger whom they all kept on treating so badly in the cloister. Telemachus knew all the time that he was come back, but kept his father's secret that he might have his revenge on all these wicked people." Then Penelope sprang up from her couch, threw her arms round Euryclea, and wept for joy. "Then I found Odysseus, standing over the corpses that were lying on the ground all round him, one on top of the other. You would have enjoyed it if you could have seen him standing there all bespattered with blood and filth, and looking just like a lion. But the corpses are now all piled up in the gatehouse that is in the outer court, and Odysseus has lit a great fire to purify the house with sulphur. He has sent me to call you, so come with me, that you may both be happy together after all. For now, at last, the desire of your heart has been fulfilled. It is some god who is angry with the suitors for their great wickedness, and has made an end of them. For they respected no man in the whole world, neither rich nor poor, who came near them, and they have come to a bad end in consequence of their iniquity. Odysseus is dead, far away from the Aegean land. He will never return home again." Then nurse Euryclea said, "My child, what do you mean? But you were all hard of belief, and have made up your mind that your husband is never coming, although he is in the house, and by his own fireside at this very moment. Besides, I can give you another proof. Even so, we will go in search of my son, that I may see the corpses of the suitors, and the man who has killed them." On this she came down from her upper room, and while doing so she considered whether she should keep at a distance from her husband and question him, or whether she should at once go up to him and embrace him. No other woman could bear to keep away from her husband when he had come back to her after 20 years of absence, and after having gone through so much. But your heart always was as hard as a stone. Penelope answered, "My son, I am so lost in astonishment that I can find no words in which either to ask questions or to answer them. I cannot even look him straight in the face. When one man has killed another, even though he was not one who would leave many friends to take up his quarrel, the man who has killed him must still say goodbye to his friends and fly the country. Whereas we have been killing the stay of a whole town, and all the picked youth of Ithaca. I would have you consider this matter." "Look to it yourself, father," answered Telemachus, "for they say you are the wisest counsellor in the world, and that there is no other mortal man who can compare with you. Once there, we will settle which of the courses the sky vouchsafes us shall seem wisest." Thus did he speak, and they did even as he had said. First they washed and put their shirts on, while the women got ready. Then Phemius took his lyre and set them all longing for sweet song and stately dance. The house re-echoed with the sound of men and women dancing, and the people outside said, "I suppose the queen has been getting married at last. She ought to be ashamed of herself for not continuing to protect her husband's property until he comes home." This was what they said. But they did not know what it was that had been happening. He came from the bath looking like one of the immortals, and sat down opposite his wife on the seat he had left. "My dear," said he, "Sky has endowed you with a heart more unyielding than woman ever yet had. No other woman could bear to keep away from her husband when he had come back to her after 20 years of absence, and after having gone through so much. But come, nurse, get a bed ready for me. I will sleep alone, for this woman has a heart as hard as iron." "My dear," answered Penelope, "I have no wish to set myself up, nor to depreciate you." He must have found it a hard task, no matter how skilled a workman he was, unless some god came and helped him to shift it. There is no man living, however strong and in his prime, who could move it from its place. For it is a marvellous curiosity, which I made with my very own hands. There was a young olive growing within the precincts of the house, in full vigour, and about as thick as a bearing post. I built my room round this, with strong walls of stone and a roof to cover them, and I made the doors strong and well-fitting. Then I cut off the top boughs of the olive tree and left the stump standing. So you see, I know all about it, and I desire to learn whether it is still there, or whether anyone has been removing it by cutting down the olive tree at its roots." When she heard the sure proofs Odysseus now gave her, she fairly broke down. She flew weeping to his side, flung her arms about his neck and kissed him. "Do not be angry with me, Odysseus," she cried. "You, who are the wisest of mankind. We have suffered, both of us. The gods has denied us the happiness of spending our youth and of growing old together. Do not then be aggrieved or take it amiss that I did not embrace you thus as soon as I saw you. Now, however, that you have convinced me by showing that you know all about our bed, which no human being has ever seen but you and I and a single maidservant, the daughter of Actor, who was given me by my father on my marriage, and who keeps the doors of our room. Hard of belief though I have been, I can mistrust no longer." Then Odysseus in his turn melted, and wept as he clasped his dear and faithful wife to his bosom. As the sight of land is welcome to men who are swimming towards the shore, when Poseidon has wrecked their ship with the fury of his winds and waves. At last, however, Odysseus said, "Wife, we have not yet reached the end of our troubles. I have an unknown amount of toil still to undergo. It is long and difficult, but I must go through with it, for thus the shade of Tiresias prophesied concerning me, on the day when I went down into Hades to ask about my return and that of my companions. But now let us go to bed, that we may lie down and enjoy the blessed boon of sleep." "You shall go to bed as soon as you please," replied Penelope, "now that the gods have sent you home to your own good house and to your country." "I do not like it myself, for Tiresias told me, travel far and wide, carrying an oar, till I came to a country where the people have never heard of the sea, and do not even mix salt with their food. They know nothing about ships, nor oars that are as the wings of a ship. He gave me this certain token which I will not hide from you. He said that a wayfarer should meet me and ask me whether it was a winnowing shovel that I had on my shoulder. On this, I was to fix my oar in the ground and sacrifice a ram, a bull, and a boar to Poseidon. Meanwhile, Eurynome and the nurse took torches and made the bed ready with soft coverlets. As soon as they had laid them, the nurse went back into the house to go to her rest, leaving the bedchamber woman Eurynome to show Odysseus and Penelope to bed by torchlight. When she had led them to their room, she went back, and they then came joyfully to the rites of their own old bed. Telemachus, Philœtius, and the swineherd now left off dancing, and made the women leave off also. They then laid themselves down to sleep in the cloisters. When Odysseus and Penelope had had their fill of love, they fell talking with one another. He told her all about the Cyclops, and how he had punished him for having so ruthlessly eaten his brave comrades. How he then went on to Aeolus, who received him hospitably and furthered him on his way. But even so, he was not to reach home, for to his great grief, a hurricane carried him out to sea again. How he went on to the Laestrygonian city Telepylos, where the people destroyed all his ships with their crews, save himself and his own ship only. This was the last thing about which he told her, for here a deep sleep took hold upon him and eased the burden of his sorrows. Then Athena thought of another matter. When she deemed that Odysseus had had both of his wife and of repose, she told gold-enthroned Dawn rise out of Oceanus, that she might shed light upon mankind. On this, Odysseus rose from his comfortable bed and said to Penelope, "Wife, we have both of us had our full share of troubles, you here in lamenting my absence, and I in being prevented from getting home, though I was longing all the time to do so. Now, however, that we have at last come together, take care of the property that is in the house. As for the sheep and goats which the wicked suitors have eaten, I will take many myself by force from other people, and will compel the Greeks to make good the rest, till they shall have filled all my yards. I am now going to the wooded lands out in the country to see my father, who has so long been grieved on my account. And to yourself I will give these instructions, though you have little need of them. At sunrise, it will at once get abroad that I have been killing the suitors. Go upstairs so, and stay there with your women." Then Hermes of Cyllene summoned the ghosts of the suitors, and in his hand he held the fair golden wand with which he seals men's eyes in sleep or wakes them just as he pleases. With this he roused the ghosts and led them, while they followed whining and gibbering behind him. As bats fly squealing in the hollow of some great cave, when one of them has fallen out of the cluster in which they hang, even so did the ghosts whine and squeal, as Hermes, the healer of sorrow, led them down into the dark abode of death. Round him were gathered also the ghosts of those who had perished with him in the house of Aegisthus. And the ghost of Achilles spoke first. "Son of Atreus," it said, "we used to say that Zeus had loved you better from first to last than any other hero. For you were captain over many and brave men when we were all fighting together before Troy. Yet the hand of death, which no mortal can escape, was laid upon you all too early. We fought the whole of the livelong day, nor should we ever have left off, if Zeus had not sent a hurricane to stay us. Then, when we had borne you to the ships out of the fray, we laid you on your bed, and cleansed your fair skin with warm water and with ointments. The Greeks tore their hair and wept bitterly round about you. Your mother, when she heard, came with her immortal nymphs from out of the sea, and the sound of a great wailing went forth over the waters, so that the Greeks quaked for fear. Days and nights 7 and 10 we mourned you, mortals and immortals. But on the 18th day we gave you to the flames, and many a fat sheep with many an ox did we slay in sacrifice around you. You were burnt in raiment of the gods, with rich resins and with honey, while heroes, horse and foot, clashed their armour round the pile as you were burning, with the tramp as of a great multitude. But when the flames of the sky had done their work, we gathered your white bones at daybreak, and laid them in ointments and in pure wine. Your mother brought us a golden vase to hold them, gift of Dionysus, and work of Hephaestus himself. Over these the host of the Greeks built a noble tomb, on a point jutting out over the open Hellespont, that it might be seen from far out upon the sea, by those now living, and by them that shall be born hereafter. Your mother begged prizes from the gods, and offered them to be contended for by the noblest of the Greeks. You must have been present at the funeral of many a hero, when the young men gird themselves and make ready to contend for prizes on the death of some great chieftain. But you never saw such prizes as silver-footed Thetis offered in your honour, for the gods loved you well. The ghost of Agamemnon recognized Amphimedon, son of Menelaus, who lived in Ithaca and had been his host. So it began to talk to him. Amphimedon, it said, what has happened to all you fine young men, all of an age too, that you are come down here under the ground? One could pick no finer body of men from any city. Did Poseidon raise his winds and waves against you when you were at sea? Or did your enemies make an end of you on the mainland, when you were cattle lifting or sheep stealing, or while fighting in defence of their wives and city? Answer my question, for I have been your guest. Odysseus had been long gone, and we were courting his wife, who did not say point blank that she would not marry, nor yet bring matters to an end, for she meant to compass our destruction. This, then, was the trick she played us. She set up a great tambour frame in her room, and began to work on an enormous piece of fine needlework. "Sweethearts," said she, "Odysseus is indeed dead. Still, do not press me to marry again immediately. Wait, for I would not have my skill in needlework perish unrecorded, till I have completed a pall for the hero Laertes against the time when death shall take him." She fooled us in this way for 3 years without our finding it out. But as time wore on, and she was now in her 4th year, in the waning of moons and many days had been accomplished, one of her maids who knew what she was doing told us, and we caught her in the act of undoing her work. So she had to finish it whether she would or no. And when she showed us the robe she had made, after she had had it washed, its splendour was as that of the sun or moon. He endured, both being struck and insulted without a word, though he was in his own house. But when the will of aegis-bearing Zeus inspired him, he and Telemachus took the armour and hid it in an inner chamber, bolting the doors behind them. Then he cunningly made his wife offer his bow and a quantity of iron to be contended for by us ill-fated suitors. And this was the beginning of our end, for not one of us could string the bow, nor nearly do so. When it was about to reach the hands of Odysseus, we all of us shouted out that it should not be given him, no matter what he might say, but Telemachus insisted on his having it. This, Agamemnon, is how we came by our end, and our bodies are lying still uncared for in the house of Odysseus. For our friends at home do not yet know what has happened, so that they cannot lay us out and wash the black blood from our wounds, making moan over us according to the offices due to the departed. Happy Odysseus, son of Laertes, replied the ghost of Agamemnon. You are indeed blessed in the possession of a wife endowed with such rare excellence of understanding, and so faithful to her wedded lord as Penelope, the daughter of Icarius. Meanwhile, Odysseus and the others passed out of the town, and soon reached the fair and well-tilled farm of Laertes, which he had reclaimed with infinite labor. Here was his house, with a lean-to running all round it, where the slaves who worked for him slept and sat and ate, while inside the house there was an old Sicel woman who looked after him in this his country farm. When Odysseus got there, he said to his son and to the other two, "Go to the house, and kill the best pig that you can find for dinner." He had on a dirty old shirt, patched and very shabby. His legs were bound round with thongs of oxhide to save him from the brambles, and he also wore sleeves of leather. He had a goatskin cap on his head, and was looking very woe-begone. When Odysseus saw him so worn, so old and full of sorrow, he stood still under a tall pear tree and began to weep. He doubted whether to embrace him, kiss him, and tell him all about his having come home, or whether he should first question him and see what he would say. I trust, however, I hope you will not be offended if I say that you take better care of your garden than of yourself. You are old, unsavoury, and very meanly clad. It cannot be because you are idle that your master takes such poor care of you. Indeed, your face and figure have nothing of the slave about them, and proclaim you of noble birth. I should have said that you were one of those who should wash well, eat well, and lie soft at night, as old men have a right to do. But tell me, and tell me truly, whose bondman are you, and in whose garden are you working? Tell me also about another matter. Believe me when I tell you that this man came to my house once, when I was in my own country, and never yet did any stranger come to me whom I liked better. He said that his family came from Ithaca, and that his father was Laertes, son of Arceisius. I received him hospitably, making him welcome to all the abundance of my house. And when he went away, I gave him all customary presents. I gave him 7 talents of fine gold, and a cup of solid silver with flowers chased upon it. I gave him 12 light cloaks, and as many pieces of tapestry. If you could have found your friend here alive in Ithaca, he would have entertained you hospitably, and would have requited your presence amply when you left him, as would have been only right, considering what you had already given him. But tell me, and tell me truly, how many years is it since you entertained this guest, my unhappy son, as ever was? Alas, he has perished far from his own country. The fishes of the sea have eaten him, or he has fallen a prey to the birds and wild beasts of some continent. I come from Alybas, where I have a fine house. I am son of King Aphidas, who is the son of Polypemon. My name is Eperitus. The gods drove me off my course as I was leaving Sicania, and I have been carried here against my will. As for my ship, it is lying over there, off the open country outside the town, and 5 years have passed since Odysseus left my country. Unhappy man. Yet the omens were good for him when he left me. The heart of Odysseus was touched, and his nostrils quivered as he looked upon his father. Then he sprang towards him, flung his arms about him and kissed him, saying, "I am he, father, about whom you are asking. I have returned, after having been away for 20 years. But cease your sighing and lament. We have no time to lose, for I should tell you that I have been killing the suitors in my house to punish them for their arrogance and crimes." "If you really are my son Odysseus," replied Laertes, "and have come back again, you must give me such clear proof of your identity as shall convince me." "First, observe this scar," answered Odysseus, "which I got from a boar's tusk when I was hunting on Mount. You gave me 13 pear trees, 10 apple trees, and 40 fig trees. You also said you would give me 50 rows of vines. There was corn planted between each row, and they yield grapes of every kind when the sun's heat has been laid heavy upon them." Laertes' strength failed him when he heard the convincing proofs which his son had given him. He threw his arms about him, and Odysseus had to support him, or he would have gone off into a swoon. When they got there, they found Telemachus with the stockman and the swineherd, cutting up food and mixing wine with water. Then the old Sicel woman took Laertes inside, and washed him, and anointed him with oil. She put him on a good cloak, and Athena came to him, and gave him a more imposing presence, making him taller and stouter than before. "I should have killed a great many of them, and you would have rejoiced to see it." Thus did they converse, but the others, when they had finished their work and the feast was ready, left off working, and took each his seat on the benches and seats. Then they began eating. After a while, old Dolius and his sons left their work and came up, for their mother, the Sicel woman who looked after Laertes now that he was growing old, had been to fetch them. When they saw Odysseus and were certain it was he, they stood there lost in astonishment. But Odysseus scolded them good-naturedly and said, "Sit down to your dinner, old man, and never mind about your surprise. But tell me, does Penelope already know of your return? Or shall we send someone to tell her?" "Old man," answered Odysseus, "she knows already, so you need not trouble about that." On this he took his seat, and the sons of Dolius gathered round Odysseus to give him greeting and embrace him one after the other. Then they took their seats in order near Dolius their father. While they were thus busy getting their dinner ready, rumor went round the town, and noised abroad the terrible fate that had befallen the suitors. As soon so as the people heard of it, they gathered from every quarter, groaning and hooting before the house of Odysseus. "He took many of our best men away with him in his fleet, and he has lost both ships and men. Now, moreover, on his return he has been killing all the foremost men among the Cephallenians. Let us be up and doing before he can get away to Pylos or to Elis where the Epeans rule, or we shall be ashamed of ourselves forever afterwards. It will be an everlasting disgrace to us if we do not avenge the murder of our sons and brothers. For my own part, I should have no more pleasure in life, but had rather die at once. I myself saw an immortal god take the form of Mentor and stand beside him. This god appeared, now in front of him encouraging him, and now going furiously about the court and attacking the suitors, and then they fell thick on one another. On this pale fear laid hold of them, and old Halitherses, son of Mastor, rose to speak, for he was the only man among them who knew both past and future. So he spoke to them plainly and in all honesty, saying, "Men of Ithaca, it is all your own fault that things have turned out as they have." But the rest stayed where they were, for the speech of Halitherses displeased them, and they sided with Eupeithes. They so hurried off for their armour, and when they had armed themselves, they met together in front of the city, and Eupeithes led them on in their folly. He thought he was going to avenge the murder of his son, whereas in truth he was never to return, but was himself to perish in his attempt. Then Athena said to Zeus, "Father, son of Kronos, king of kings, answer me this question. What do you propose to do? Will you set them fighting still further, or will you make peace between them?" And Zeus answered, "My child, why should you ask me? Let them then all become friends as heretofore, and let peace and plenty reign." This was what Athena was already eager to bring about, so down she darted from off the topmost summits of Olympus. Now when Laertes and the others had done dinner, Odysseus began by saying, "Some of you go out and see if they are not getting close up to us." So one of Dolius's sons went as he was bid. Standing on the threshold, he could see them all quite near, and said to Odysseus, "Here they are. Let us put on our armor at once." They put on their armor as fast as they could. That is to say, Odysseus, his 3 men, and the 6 sons of Dolius. Odysseus was glad when he saw her, and said to his son Telemachus, "Telemachus, now the fight will show what each man is made of. Be sure not to disgrace your ancestors, who were known across the world for strength and courage." "You say truly, my dear father," answered Telemachus, "and you shall see, if you will, that I will not disgrace your family." Laertes was delighted when he heard this. "What a day!" he exclaimed. "What a day I have lived to see!" Athena stood between the 2 sides, and her voice stopped the bloodshed. Odysseus still burned to pursue them, but Zeus sent thunder from the sky. Then the goddess spoke again. "Enough!" The war inside Ithaca had to end, or the return would become another ruin. Odysseus obeyed gladly, and Athena, taking the form and voice of Mentor, made peace between the grieving houses. So the long return was complete,